Who will be the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns? Welcome into the show, everybody. I am your host, Joey O'Donoghue, and we've got 20 candidates. That's right, 20 names that are in the mix right now to be a head coach in the National Football League. We're going to go through all of them for you guys and what makes the most sense for your Cleveland Browns. So, do not forget to hit that subscribe button, okay? Because when the official news is announced, just like when Stefanski was fired, we made videos ASAP. We went live. We got coverage for you. And, guys, we're almost at the magic number, okay? 69,000 subscribers. Be mature, okay? Be mature for a second. But we're 571 subs away with this offseason with quarterback questions, head coach questions. There's a lot. And Cleveland's going to have a top 6 pick in the draft. So for draft content, hit that subscribe button as well. I got daily Browns news and rumors videos for you guys. That's right, every single day. Don't miss out. Hit the sub button if you're a diehard Browns fan. The first name on this list to replace Kevin Stefanski is Commanders offensive coordinator Kliff Kingsbury. Kingsbury's been a head coach before. Let's talk about his tenure in the National Football League. Look, it ended poorly in Arizona. I think I might have had a little recency bias because after the 2022 season, I was like, yeah, Kingsbury can't coach. I'm out on him. But don't forget, they made the playoffs in 2021, lost in the wild card round. And, Arizona's a team that just lacks success, lacks consistency. They had some decent years with Bruce Arians, but other than that, their franchise is a losing record franchise. So Kingsbury to come in there and have a decent season, okay, it got my hopes up a little bit. Also, what he did with Jaden Daniels last year, and he is very offensive-minded. He is on the younger side. He's a name to consider. But the knock on Kingsbury, I would say, is to play the devil's advocate, his offense could be a little vanilla. NFL teams, I think, start to figure out, almost like what happened with Kevin Stefanski. When Jaden Daniels was playing this year, it was not nearly as efficient as it was the year before. And, Daniels got hurt. And things just went south for the Commanders. But they also had one of the worst defenses in the league by total defense. So factor all that in, I think Kingsbury becomes an offensive candidate for the Browns. Let's talk about Todd Monken, the Ravens offensive coordinator, ladies and gentlemen. Are there changes coming to Baltimore this year? Perhaps. Monken actually was the Browns offensive coordinator at one point. When Lamar got hurt, the one credit I'll give to Monken is they won that big game with Tyler Huntley, and he called a good game. But Ravens missed the playoffs. Offense not the same. I don't know if I'd be in on Monken, and this is another AFC North rivalry you got to factor in here. But he's already made the move from Cleveland to Baltimore, so maybe he would consider coming back. Let's talk about Jim Schwartz, all right? The Browns' current defensive coordinator. What if we stay internal and we can promote Jim Schwartz to head coach? Let's talk about this idea for Cleveland. Schwartz, who's done a phenomenal job with the defense this year, did a phenomenal job in 2023 with the defense. I think he has earned recognition league-wide. He'll be a hot candidate for other teams to pursue. So why don't we get first dibs here, okay? Jimmy Haslam said they think very highly of Jim Schwartz, but they haven't talked about those conversations yet. Look at the Browns' defense this season. 4th in total defense, 3rd in passing defense. The run defense was really good to start the year. Those numbers started to slide after they gave up some big performances later in the season. Opponents averaged 22.3 points per game, and the Browns had a dominant defensive line. Look at the season Myles Garrett had. Look at Malik Collins. Look at your linebackers, too. Schlesinger and Devin Bush. Standout seasons for both of them. He's great at developing players. Tyson Campbell comes to Cleveland. He starts balling out way better than he was in Jacksonville, and that's because of Jim Schwartz's man defensive scheme. So I think he does a great job developing young players. His defense is incredible. Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett endorsed Jim Schwartz in their press conferences. They say they love playing for Jim, and they say he should get a shot to be the head coach. And Schwartz has been a head coach before in the league. He coached the Detroit Lions. Now, there was a couple of really bad losing seasons, but he did coach a Lions team that made the playoffs. Schwartz is experienced, smart, great defensive mind. If that's the only way to keep him, well, I'm listening to your argument. But you tell me in the comment section, what should Jim Schwartz's next role be? Should he be the head coach of the Browns? Type HC. Do you like him at defensive coordinator? Stay there. Type DC. I love him there. I don't know if Cleveland would make the move to promote him. Like I said, Haslam said they haven't even talked about that yet, right? I think he's fit to be a defensive coordinator. But if you're going to lose him, I think he's earned himself an interview. Type DC, though, if you think he should stay DC. If you think he should be let go, just like Stefanski was, we're cleaning house, getting rid of everybody from this year, you can type LG. Get your letters in the comments section. Curious where you're at with that, Browns fans. Next candidate is one that just opened up actually this morning. Jonathan Gannon has been fired by the Arizona Cardinals. And not many people maybe realize this, maybe you don't, but Gannon is actually a Cleveland native. And we had Mary Kay tweeting about this, saying Cleveland native Jonathan Gannon would be an excellent head coach candidate for the hashtag Browns. I think this is an awful take by Mary Kay, just because he's from Cleveland. That's his qualifications to be the Cleveland Browns head coach. He was not good in Arizona. He deserved to be fired by that franchise. Losing season after losing season. 3 years there with the Cardinals, those are the records that he finished with. And he's pretty boring as well. You want to talk about Stefanski being a boring head coach? Look at some of Gannon's stuff. He's pretty cringe as well, but that doesn't factor into the stats, the numbers here in the National Football League. And what's the stat you need to know is that he's 3-14, 2025, okay? The Cardinals are a mess. Bad offensive outputs every week for them. And so I would not be in on Jonathan Gannon being the head coach of the Cleveland Browns just because he's from Cleveland. Here's another name for you guys. Let's talk about Brian Daboll, another head coach that was fired this year by the New York Giants, another guy that was in Cleveland a little long time ago. And Daboll, he gets a lot of slack from the New York fans, and I get it. They're impatient. They want to see wins, and, maybe it made sense for them to fire Daboll. But he's coached up some young quarterbacks and turned them into, pretty good prospects. He was a coordinator in Buffalo helping Josh Allen develop. He was the head coach for Jackson Dart when Jackson Dart got a couple starts and looked hot to start things off here. He's not bad with young quarterbacks, offensive-minded coach option for the Cleveland Browns. And I did say the number one thing I want in the next head coach for the Browns is a guy that has the ability to develop a quarterback. That's the story of the Cleveland Browns franchise. We can't find the QB decade after decade after decade. I want a guy that's going to bring the most out of our quarterback, like Ben Johnson's doing for Caleb Williams, like Vrabel's doing for Drake May, something like that. So we have our guy, our head coach quarterback tandem, to work hand in hand. So I'm not saying I would go out and hire Daboll, but I'm saying if you want a guy like that, well, he's one of the candidates in this pool that fits the mold. And quite frankly, it's not the best pool of candidates this year. A lot of the better candidates are defensive-minded guys. So I would consider that if you want to go offense. Someone that's not getting talked about enough, Mike LaFleur, the Rams offensive coordinator who has worked under some of the most brilliant offensive minds in the NFL. I'm talking about him working under Kyle Shanahan. I'm talking about him working under Sean McVay for multiple years in a row now. Mike LaFleur is a name I would be chomping at the bit to get right now if I'm the Cleveland Browns. It's exactly what I'm looking for, okay? I want the guy that's like Sean McVay, a young offensive mind that's going to develop QBs. I mean, look at Matt Stafford this year. He's MVP conversation, MVP favorite at one point. The Rams are a legit contender. And you're telling me we can get a guy that has had excellent experience with some of the best at what I'm looking for? Well, Cleveland, go out there and get an interview with Mr. LaFleur and see if that can change the franchise. You tell me. I've got plenty other candidates coming up for you, but do you like anyone so far? Comment your pick down below of the names you've seen so far or someone I haven't mentioned yet in the comment section. But like I said, I've got plenty more, so don't go anywhere. But give me your first impression here. Is there anyone catching your eye as we go through the first half of this video? Comment down below. Let's talk about Mike McCarthy, ladies and gentlemen. The man who has, well, he's on the older side, but Andrew Berry's talking as if Cleveland is going to transition to win now mode because of how good their defense is, right? So there is no excuse for Cleveland to have had a 5-win season, in my opinion, a 3-win season last year. I think you do need to be in, let's go try and win this thing right now while we have Myles Garrett playing at this elite level, while we have this defense that's top 5 in the National Football League. I showed you the numbers under Jim Schwartz. And Mike McCarthy, although he's a veteran candidate, look at some of his successes in the NFL. 12 playoff seasons in 18 seasons as a head coach. He's a Super Bowl champion. 2010, Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, right? Went 12-5 3 years in a row with Dallas very recently, too. 2021 to 2023 seasons. 12-5 were his exact record, and he got fired in 2024 by the Cowboys and, hasn't been a head coach since. Took a year off, essentially. He's a candidate that I'm hearing a lot of teams are very interested in. Should the Cleveland Browns go call up Mike McCarthy? I think he's one of the better candidates in this cycle. And like I said, sure, he's older. But if you're telling me we need a guy that with a winning mentality that's had success, I'm interested. You weigh in for me down below, though. Should the Browns consider hiring Mike McCarthy? Type Y for yes. Type N for no in the comments section. Let me know how you feel about this one, Browns fans. Very curious what you guys will have to say about that. Let's get to our next couple candidates here. John Gruden. It's an option that I hear a lot of Browns fans yelling about. All right, I love it. Gruden grew up a Cleveland fan. He's a football savant. Knows X's and O's better than anybody else, you could argue. I think it's very unlikely, though, that the NFL, it's not easy. It's not going to be easy to get Gruden back to the NFL, all right? He's going to have to probably clear some legal issues with the league, but I know he'd be chomping at the bit to get back out there, so I put him up there for you guys. I'm also going to put this one up here for you guys. Deion Sanders, Colorado head coach and the father of Shedeur Sanders. Is this a real possibility, ladies and gentlemen, to reunite the father-son duo? This is coach at Colorado. I think it's very unlikely that this becomes the case. I mean, Deion also, Colorado didn't look too great this year. Deion's had some health concerns as well. I think the only way this is ever an actual rumor is if the Browns are sold that Shedeur Sanders is their franchise quarterback or their starter for the next few years. It's the only way I think that this even becomes a thing. Otherwise, I don't think either party's interested, Deion nor the Browns, for that matter. So, very unlikely, but I heard some people commenting about Deion, so I put him on the list for you guys. This one, though, Jesse Minter of the Chargers is one that is a candidate getting a lot of buzz right now. Chargers, going to be a playoff team. Defense looks pretty solid. I think Jim Harbaugh really helped turn that around when he got there. But Minter, I'm hearing, is getting a lot of interest around the league. Jordan Schultz says Minter's the hottest name, sources told him, of all the candidates available right now. And so if that's the case, well, I do expect Cleveland to interview a few defensive guys. Jimmy Haslam said he doesn't have a preference one way or another to go offensive or defensive-minded coach. So look out for Minter to be on Cleveland's radar. Mike McDaniel, head coach of the Miami Dolphins. You know what? I like Mike McDaniel. All right, I get it. He's a little quirky. He's had his ups and downs, but I think there's a case to be made for a guy that was on Cleveland staff at one point as well as a wide receiver coach. He's got a winning overall record, 35-33 in the regular season. He's a smart play designer, offensive-minded coach. Not necessarily play caller this year, but play designer. He's creative, and I think that's something that could help benefit the young players in Cleveland on offense. We're stale. We've been boring. The play calling's been bad. It's been predictable. Mike McDaniel is a guy that could draw something up. So I would consider this, but I do not expect Mike McDaniel to be fired. I think he's pretty safe in Miami because they went on a hot win streak after the GM got fired and McDaniel stayed. So I don't think he'll become available, but I threw him on there because if he does, there was a report that Cleveland is interested in interviewing him. So I think he'll be a candidate if he opens up, but I don't see it opening up. Got more candidates for you guys on the back half of today's show. 10 more you're not going to want to miss, ladies and gentlemen. This is a huge deal. Who's coaching the Browns next year? Who could turn this thing around? I'll tell you who. But first, I want to give a special shout out to today's sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Whether you're starting a new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard. But in life and on Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matchups every weekend and elite hoops action almost every night, the action never stops. And Prize Picks lets you take control. I love this app. It's a lot of fun. I win money, and covering the Browns helps me know what picks to make. And since I can't watch my favorite team anymore for a while, I want a way to stay entertained during games and have something to root for. A new feature alert! Prize Picks now has early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you may now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Get in on the action. Prize Picks is now available in all 50 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Here's my lineup, ladies and gentlemen. Kyren Williams, more than 67.5 rushing yards and more than half a touchdown. I think it's the Kyren Williams game against Carolina as they account for Stafford. And finally, give me the more. C.J. Stroud, more than half a passing touchdown against Those Steelers were rooting hard for those Texans. You can make a lineup just like this one if you download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. John Harbaugh, a name that may shock you, ladies and gentlemen. However, it is not out of the realm of possibility that Harbaugh, after all this time, frees up. And Adam Schefter of ESPN, who said yesterday morning that he expected Stefanski to be out, he expected Pete Carroll to be out. He was right about both of those. He said it should be a conversation that Harbaugh should be out rather than Mike Tomlin. And all of a sudden, the Ravens lose to the Steelers. Pittsburgh wins the division. Harbaugh, Lamar don't get it done. Is this going to be a real conversation? Also, let's laugh at the Ravens because they lost yesterday. Tyler Luton missed a 44-yard field goal. It feels so good to watch a different AFC North team lose on kicker woes and lose in the clutch. Pretty funny to see from our perspective. I didn't really care necessarily who won. Like, if the Ravens won, I would have been happy because that means the Browns spoiled Pittsburgh's season by beating the Steelers. However, I think the Steelers get washed by the Texans in the first round. Texans are hot. They got hot at the right time. An elite defense. So I still think we're good, ladies and gentlemen. But I thought it was really funny the Ravens lost and choked. It was pretty cool to watch. Klint Kubiak, Seahawks offensive coordinator, getting a lot of buzz right now as well. It's a name I brought up a lot on this show because I think what he's done in Seattle, what he's made Sam Darnold look like, is impressive, okay? Darnold's career was dead too. And Seattle hangs 38 on the Rams in overtime. They are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Their defense is very solid as well. But it impresses me how good they are. And Klint Kubiak is the guy calling the plays and making that happen. The Atlanta Falcons have already requested to interview Klint Kubiak, by the way, today, ladies and gentlemen. He's a name that's drawing interest. I'd be shocked if he's not at least a part of Cleveland's coaching search, and I think he should be a name that the Browns fans should watch out for. That's Klint Kubiak in Seattle. Don't miss out on the latest Kubiak rumors. I'll let you know if Cleveland requests to interview him. Grant Udinski is an interesting name that is being brought up lately as well. The Jaguars offensive coordinator. Look at what Trevor Lawrence has been now. He had one really good season when the Jags made the playoffs, couldn't beat the Chiefs, and I was like, I'm in on Lawrence. And then all of a sudden, Lawrence has some skids. People start giving up on him. I didn't give up on him. I said, give him a few years. He'll be good. And then and then I was like, all right, I might have to call my case here. It's the last year of Trevor Lawrence before I give up. He's having quite the season, ladies and gentlemen. I think Udinski's a big part of that. It's getting a lot of conversation. Guess what, though? Grant Udinski's only 30 years old. Maybe he's too young to be a head coach. Maybe he's not a head coach candidate right now, but he's already an offensive coordinator. I think he's going to be a guy that could at least get an interview from a couple teams, or maybe Cleveland could bring him in as an offensive coordinator. Think about that. Josh Grizzard, the Buccaneers offensive coordinator. It would be funny if we hired the guy that's scheming up plays for Baker Mayfield right now, but I don't see it happening necessarily. He got a lot of buzz early on in the coaching carousel rumors, but the Bucs just missed the playoffs. Their offense started sliding. Record not as good. And to be fair, they handled business. They beat the Panthers in the big game of the season, but because the Falcons won their last few games, the Bucs missed the playoffs. So Grizzard, name to watch for, but I don't think it's a likely scenario for Cleveland or someone that they're going to look at. How about this one? Steve Spagnuolo, all of a sudden, has been requested to be interviewed by the Titans, I believe. Coach Spags is available. I love Coach Spags and what he's done in Kansas City. He does a phenomenal job with their defense. He's experienced. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's got playoff experience. He's been in a winning organization. We need someone who has been around winning to get in here and change the culture in Cleveland. Now, Spags, he's an older candidate. It doesn't fit the mold of what I said I wanted, right? He's defensive and he's old. But a guy like that with that pedigree, I'm a huge fan of his work. If we can't keep Jim Schwartz, I wouldn't mind bringing in a Coach Spags or Flores or someone of that nature. Spags, though, would be on my list then if we're going defensive. Here's another interesting one for you guys. How about Davis Webb, the quarterback coach for the Broncos? That's right. He's getting buzz. very creative, smart, offensive-minded style coach. And some of the coaches that have had success weren't necessarily in coordinator roles the year before. So consider Davis Webb as well, a guy who's played the quarterback position too for Cleveland. And I said, my number one thing is someone that can help quarterbacks. Bo Nix hasn't been amazing, but he's delivered in the clutch. So look out for that one. Another guy getting a lot of buzz right now is Matt Burke, the defensive coordinator for the Houston Texans, and that defense is elite. It might be the best defense in all of football. Burke is worth a look if we do go defensive. Like I said, Haslam has no preference, apparently, even though this is the biggest decision of his life right now. Brian Flores. People tell me he's the best defensive coordinator in the league. I think he's got the argument to be that way. So look, if Cleveland goes Flores' way, he'll be getting multiple interviews, I would imagine, from candidates across the league. Joe Brady, a name that I've brought up a few times as well, and I bring him up because of his offensive prowess. I bring him up because Buffalo averages 30 points per game, because Josh Allen looks like the best offensive player in the league at points. Now, maybe Brady's time has run its course a little bit. I think the hype on Brady was up here and has declined a little bit. Buffalo, didn't win the division this year. Maybe it wouldn't make sense for Cleveland to fire Stefanski and then bring in Joe Brady. They're relatively similar. But if you do look at the offenses in Buffalo versus in Cleveland, it's no comparison. All right? So consider Joe Brady if you're going to go offensive. He's a candidate that's going to be on the market and should get an interview. Finally, Jeff Hafley, a name generating a lot of interest across the NFL. I heard he's a candidate for the Giants, but Hafley, a well-respected defensive coordinator. And what's interesting about him, too, is Malik Willis is going to be a quarterback free agent that warrants a lot of traction. He balled out in the absence of Jordan Love, and I think teams are going to give him a contract. Malik Willis is going to get paid. So what if you have the scenario where a team brings in Jeff Hafley and Malik Willis? In Cleveland, quite frankly, we are not sure who their starting quarterback will be day one next year. Andrew Berry said Shedeur Sanders is a work in progress right now. Said he didn't commit to Sanders for next year. So Cleveland's not 100% sure. They might be going back to Watson. I mean, you're picking 6th overall now, so I don't think you're trading up and getting a quarterback. And please don't do the thing where you draft late-round quarterbacks again. You see how it doesn't work out. Shedeur will be on the roster. He will be in contention to be the starter, and he showed some good things this year. But it's not a guarantee at the moment. So maybe Cleveland goes out and gets their quarterback that the head coach wants. See what that means for Cleveland. But you let me know. Those are your names for Kevin Stefanski replacements. I'll monitor the situation every day closely for you guys. But you tell me in the comment section, who should the Browns hire next? Comment a name below. I'm going to go through and read who Browns fans want to be their next coach. You let me know in the comment section. But there are a few good options like I showed you. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss who Cleveland's interviewing, who they actually hire, who makes it to the final stages. I have you covered on the Browns Report. Hit the sub button. Really hope the Browns turn things around. Appreciate you all rocking here with me on this wonderful Monday afternoon. And I will see you very shortly here on the Browns Report.